We're back with On the Record with Tiffany and my special guest, Joe Gonzales, our district attorney. I wanted to tell you something really quick, Honorable Joe Gonzales. I love saying that. Okay. And that is that we are offering, in my day job, my other hat that I wear is with Texas Kidney Foundation. And so we are doing free screenings to locate those underlying conditions that are plaguing us right now during COVID-19. We're going to follow people who have been diagnosed with COVID-19. We're going to follow their kidney function for the next 3 years. So that's, and we've gotten thousands, like literally thousands of tests donated to us, so that we can do that and support our community. So we get to be community saviors just like you. Just like the district attorney's office. You're just helping to save the mental health and families and really keeping families together and coming up with outside of the box ways to do that through the courts. Like our court system is so vastly different from many others around the country. I feel like you're doing some things that show leadership and can show some of the other places that are clearly behind us what they need to do next. Mm-hmm. So will you talk to us a little bit about cite and release?
Sure. Well, as I mentioned before, obviously my most important function is to keep our community safe. Mm-hmm. I want to make sure that those people that prey on our most vulnerable, our children, our women, our elderly, those people that commit crimes against those individuals, that are appropriately punished for those crimes. But in addition to that, one of the things that I quickly realized when I came into office is I only have a limited amount of budget. Mm-hmm. I only have, and although 500 employees sounds like a lot, when you consider the amount of cases that we have to handle per year, that doesn't stretch very far. And so we had to make a decision to streamline what we did and to focus on the more important things, like combating violent crime, like the street gang prosecution that I talked about last time, those kinds of issues, family violence, those are things that are important to us. Not so much the small nonviolent misdemeanor offenses that may result in a person getting some sort of probation anyway. A lot of people will get what's called deferred adjudication, which is the kind of probation that avoids a conviction. But it costs money to arrest someone. It costs money to book someone into a local jail. And it costs money to feed that person until he gets to court. Depending on who you're talking about, a person, it may cost the county between $50 to $75 a day to feed and house that person. So we need to come up with some ways to save the county money that doesn't risk the safety of the community. One of those programs is called Cite and Release. Now, this idea has been around for some time. It was actually on the books back in 2007. It's just taken this long. Although a lot of people have given a shot at doing it, I think ours is the first administration, or I should say taking a shot. This is our first time doing it, and I believe that we're doing it successfully. But the reason that it's working is because we've had a huge buy-in from all the players, including law enforcement. So we've had the cooperation of SAPD and Chief McManus. We've had the cooperation of Sheriff Salazar and the Bexar County Sheriff's Office, plus the other surrounding agencies. We have about 35 or so surrounding municipalities and law enforcement agencies. So that's a lot of people that make arrests on a daily basis. So what this does, Tiffany, is it gives the officer the discretion to, instead of arresting that individual, issuing a citation, much like a traffic ticket. Now we're talking about low-level, nonviolent offenses. As a matter of fact, by statute, only certain offenses qualify, like misdemeanor amounts of marijuana, that's 4 ounces or less. That's misdemeanor theft cases, driving while license invalid, synthetic marijuana. So those generally are the types of offenses that are eligible for cite and release. For example, when an officer makes a decision to arrest someone, a lot of times it may take the majority, if not all of his shift, to get that person arrested, transported, booked, and processed, where by using the benefit of cite and release, the officer can immediately cite that person with a citation and get back on the street and patrol that area that he's assigned to, and deal with more violent crime, maybe respond to an aggravated robbery, or God forbid a sexual assault or something else, where his attention is more is needed versus just arresting someone for a misdemeanor amount of marijuana.
Well, where his attention is needed for the safety of our community. What you just cited, violent crimes, that's what affects our safety. Somebody with misdemeanor marijuana, I mean, that's, they shouldn't have it. But if I have the choice between you taking care of a domestic violence case or that, the funding needs to go towards the domestic violence or towards the violent crime, because those are the things that keep the rest of us safe.
Right. And never mind the political discussions of whether or not marijuana should be legalized or not. It's the issue of how much is it going to cost to process this individual and then ultimately prosecute just for him to get probation anyway. And then we have the additional challenge of now we have to be able to prove that what the substance that the individual has is actually marijuana versus hemp, because the law requires us to prove that that substance is not hemp but marijuana. That means it's got to have a THC quantity of 0.3% or higher.
So now you got to spend all this time trying to figure this and money, and at the end of it, that person is still going to get probation, and you have now spent precious taxpayer dollars on putting them, going through the process of putting them in jail, of booking them, when you know that the outcome is basically that you just spent a bunch of money.
So let me put some dollars and cents behind this program. You may think, well, yeah, what good does it do to the community? Well, by now implementing this program, and we started late summer of last year, we have now cost the county we've now saved the county over $2 million in booking and prosecution costs. So just on the booking side, in order to avoid having 2,700 people being arrested, we have saved the county over $1.8 million, plus an additional $500,000 in prosecution costs. That's $2 million that we didn't have to spend booking this individual. Now, you may ask, so what is that? What does the person that was stopped with marijuana have to do? Remember, we talked about skin in the game. So here's the skin in the game.
And see, that's what I was going to ask you, because they're not just like skipping out of the court, out of the.
and the beauty of this, number one, it's discretionary. So the officer has to make the initial decision about whether or not to cite the individual or not. If the officer believes that this person is not eligible because either of his criminal history, or because, let's say, he was combative, or he just, in the officer's mind, is not a good candidate for cite and release, he doesn't have to cite him. He can arrest him and go about his normal operations. But if for whatever reason the officer believes this person is a good candidate, that he issues him the citation, that person has a certain amount of time to report to the reentry center, which is located downtown. Once he comes to our reentry center, we're going to screen him to determine whether or not he's eligible. If he is, and then we identify what the problem is. Let's say it's a drug case, right? A marijuana case. We're going to ask that he either do some drug treatment or some community service, or maybe a combination of both, or do both of them, I should say. And if he successfully completes it, then the case stays rejected. That means it's done. He never gets an arrest record. He never gets a conviction on his record. He goes about his business. If he, for example, if he's a student, he doesn't lose his college tuition or funding, his scholarship. If he's an employee,
that's very important.
Sure. Let's say he works at USAA or Valero, or even just a parent, a single parent that gets subsidies or some kind of government funding that may be jeopardized by having a criminal conviction. That avoids all those problems, those consequences. But again, here's the skin in the game. We're going to give you a certain amount of time to do what you have to do the community service, or to do the drug awareness class, or shoplifting class, if that's what the issue is.
So they're not just given a citation and then you just go on back to your house and keep doing whatever you were doing. You're given a citation and then a series of steps that you have to take personal responsibility for and get this right yourself in some way.
Right, and I call it drug awareness. Obviously, drug treatment is what I'm talking about.
Right.
But that's right. And if you don't do that, then we have the right to file on you like we could have initially. So if you don't do what you're supposed to, then we make the decision we can make the decision to file the case against you. Now, we're going to be as accommodating as we can. If the reason you can't take that anti-shoplifting class or community services because you can't get there because you have transportation issues, or maybe you have childcare issues, well, we're going to try and bend over backwards to give you time to do what you got to do. But after a while, if you just thumb your nose at us and you think, hey, you're not going to do anything to me anyway, guess what? We have the right to do what we could have done to begin with. So there's your skin in the game.
Look at that. Now I want my listeners to hear this, because that is what reform looks like. Reform is not you just let everybody go and they can do whatever they want to and live their lives in whatever manner they wish. Reform is there are levels and steps that we're taking. Reform is each person who comes into the system has a responsibility for themselves to change their actions, to change who they are, to change how they're interacting with others, so that they are productive members of society. We are, as a city, giving them the opportunity to make that change, providing the programs to do that, and we're doing it in an efficient manner. We're doing it in a way that is fiscally minded, so we're not spending money that is just being burned up for no reason. Because to take somebody with 4 ounces of marijuana and just throw them in a county jail, when we need to put them in a program and help them learn how to interact like they should be interacting, without necessarily the use of marijuana in their lives. If that is our goal, then a program like the reforms that you've made is exactly what we need. Throwing somebody in a cell isn't going to get us there.
Right.
And it costs us a fortune. So once again, another history lesson, not history lesson, but another law lesson, understanding of what's going on in our society, because that for me, it makes me feel better and safer to know that we're thinking about people, that we're thinking about the individual, and we're putting some onus back on folks. You can't get your life right if nobody ever tells you this is wrong, and let's look at some ways you can change this, but it's on you, buddy, to do so. You can't get it right if nobody does that. So thank you for holding people's feet to the fire and giving them a way to do it, giving them a way to get their lives together. But we got to hold feet to the fire. That's just part of this.
Right.
But
part of the reason that this was important to me to do is years ago, and I'll never forget this. I once represented someone who I believe was being falsely accused of a minor amount of drugs, and it was such a small amount they had to scrape up the amount of, it was cocaine, that they actually arrested him for. We ultimately got our client acquitted because he was a backseat passenger, wasn't even the driver. And afterwards, on the way out, one of the jurors stopped me and she was upset. She says, "Why are you wasting my time?" I said, "Excuse me?" She goes, "Why are you wasting our taxpayer dollars? Why do we have to sit here for an entire week to hear this case when you could have just taken care of it another way?" Well, she thought I was a prosecutor. It was my job to represent my client, and I did what I was supposed to do, but I don't think the prosecutor ever got the benefit of her opinion. But that always stuck with me that, you know what, she's right. We spent a whole week of the court's time. All these 12 people had to come down here and take time from work or whatever they're doing in their lives to listen to this case, and in the end, he didn't get punished because he didn't, as far as I was concerned, that was the right result, but maybe not everybody felt that way. But the point is, this was such a small amount that there certainly could have been other options. So that's always stuck with me.
Well, I'm glad that it did, because we have so many, with 2,700 people and misdemeanor crimes. And of course, we're going to get more statistical data on this, but we have places like Camden, New Jersey, where they did the same thing, did similar things. And we know that this is the way to go, because it really does drive down, it actually helps with the violent crimes going down too, because the resources and the energy is put towards the violent crimes. And then those misdemeanor crimes go down as well, because people start taking their responsibility for those misdemeanor crimes. They start, once they get into programs, that's what helps them. That's what helps them. I mean, the people who don't want to change aren't going to change, but there are many people that want to change.
Right.
So thank you for another one of our lessons in law. And to my listeners, you've been listening to On the Record with Tiffany. Whether you agree with us or not, whether you like what we're saying, you have to understand what the system is that we work within. That the law is something that is to be interpreted whether there is a pandemic or not. Whether there's, people have to, us having a steadfast district attorney who just remains even keeled. Pandemic, even keeled. Regular times, even keeled. Because you have a vision, and that's what's called leadership. A vision, a mission, and execution of that vision and mission. So thank you, Honorable Joe Gonzales. I will always call you that because of several things. The respect that it denotes, and also because you and I are in the positions that we're in, and our great-grandparents couldn't have been. They couldn't have been. So you're going to get my respect, buddy. So thank you for coming to On the Record with Tiffany and for sitting down with us. And I'm looking forward to our next talk. So to all my listeners, everybody who agrees with the Honorable Joe Gonzales, you're welcome to email us. Everybody who disagrees, you're welcome to email us. We're going to answer your questions and talk to you about it, because that's what these United States are about. We can talk to one another, we can dialogue and discourse, and we should do that. We should do that. Let's get back to a place where we're uniting, where we're talking through the issues that we like and don't like, and we get to a middle ground. Middle ground is where we need to come to. And you've been listening to On the Record with Tiffany. Thank you for being my guest today.
Thank you for having me once again.